Hi, everyone. Here's an overview of like a review for the last exam. You have so many problems and so much to work with. It's tricky to narrow it down. So, first of all, try to relax. That nervousness is not going to help you learn anything, but it will help some things to take off out of your head. So try to just relax and think about what you know and go chapter by chapter, and you'll identify places where you think you might have to work a little bit more, and that'll be your approach. Okay? So what I did was I looked at the chapter notes first to see if there's anything in there that you should really pay attention to, and then some of the technical highlights in each chapter, and then good problems for review. Okay, and you've got plenty of practice materials, but there might be a case where you don't have a solution that you need, like the chapter 8 practice exercises are not in there, weren't in there when I first started doing this, so I uploaded those, and those are really good to begin with. Now, on budgeting, you want something in your head for major categories. This is from the notes, like what is a budget, the purpose of the budget, benefits, components, differences between the financial budget and the operating budget. Okay, you should have something there. And also the order that they're done in. Okay, for budgeting approaches, there are participatory budgets, zero-based ones, and then budgets with a top-down approach. Okay, that's pretty much from the notes, and it gets you started on budgets. And then what we did was, the Excel project was a really good review of the flow of how you go through a budget. Okay, and I spent a lot of time at work working on budgets, so it's like a 12-month job. It never really ends. The multiple choice problems in Top Hat are good. Okay, so I would do those. I would practice preparing cash receipts and cash disbursement schedules. You've got some real good problems like that in Top Hat, so do those. And also review the production sequence, including, preparation of the production budget and then material budget to support production. Okay, just the order that those are in and how they are. Now, for Chapter 7 on flexible budgets, when you go back through this, it might get easier for you because you'll start to notice some of the differences between the four level variances. Okay, now level 1 through 3 variant, I should say 1, huh? Level 1 through 3 variances in increasing levels of capacity or complexity. Okay, that's what they are. And it's worthwhile to look at the actual variance formulas and think about how they change from one level to another. Also, remember the title of the variance. Okay, maybe look at the title and then go backwards. Okay, go up. And remember then that level 3 opens up 1 and 2 to include price and quantity. And price and quantity is probably where your head starts. Okay, so you're going to have to go backwards to get level 2 and level 1, and then go back up again to level 3. Okay, and then we're going to add variable and fixed overhead on top of it. Now here is just a level 1 analysis, and looking back on it, remember it's just the difference between the actual results and the static budget. That's all it is. It's a level 1 analysis. And then the title of the variance is the static budget variance. So it's actual minus budget. Okay, so take your time and look at that and, just think about it a little bit. Do you know what I mean? We're so busy working problems earlier that sometimes we don't reflect enough, but just think about it. So let's look at level 2. Now what level 2 does is we still have our actual results here and the static budget here on the far right, but in the center we've put down a flexible budget, which is it keeps the actual quantity, but it uses the budgeted rate. It uses the standard price. Okay, and you can do these for both revenues and variable costs. All right, and then what else is nice about this is you can take this apart. The whole thing, the difference between actual and static, is the static budget variance. And in here, we just broke it down between flexible budget variance, and then this difference between the flexible budget and the static is your sales volume variance. Okay, so spend a minute and think about that. The other thing, I know I harp on this, but I see a lot of people get confused on exams and coming up with these formulas. So you could start out with, if you start out with actual price times actual quantity, repeat the actual quantity times standard price, repeat standard price times standard quantity, you're on your way. Okay, you'll get there. And the other thing is to remember is that the price is always per unit in all of these formulas. Okay, and the quantity is in total. All right, so the standard quantity, maybe for actual units produced, that might be a unit amount, but generally speaking, when you're talking quantity, you mean big numbers. Okay, now here's level 3, and level 3 is broken down, takes the level 2 variance, okay, and what it does, here's level 2, and it takes apart this actual to flexible. Okay, this is where we are now. It leaves out the static budget. So let's go back here. So here is level 3, and these are direct variances for direct costs. So in this case, we've got direct materials and direct manufacturing labor. Okay, and we've broken it apart, both apart between price and efficiency variance. Okay, and we've got a flexible budget variance would be the total here. Now let's go back up here. This is the flexible budget variance right there. Okay, so that's all we're looking at. We took this and expanded it to this. Okay, so here's your flexible budget. Budgeted input quantity allowed for actual output times the budgeted price. And you've got 3 numbers here, 3 values to work with, and it can get confusing. But just remember it's all budget except for the actual output. Okay, so here our actual output is units, and we planned on 2 yards per unit at $30 per yard. So this is all budget. Okay, but that's our actual output. And that, I don't know, that helps me for some reason too. In the center, we have the actual input quantity, 22.2. Okay, that's what's different here at $30 a square yard. So the quantity that we're using here is 20,000. Okay, but we're looking at $30 a square yard for both. Okay, but it's really an efficiency variance because it's looking at the difference in the quantity used. Okay, so do some nice basic problems in this. I've got 20. Did I have them here? Oh, no. I think I have some. Wait a minute. Oh, this one here, Jenna's jump rope. This is a good basic. Do this one without looking at anything, at any solutions first. All right, and see how I write this down because it's just an old habit. That's a good way to get my head in the right place. And I broke it apart then between material, labor, and overhead. Okay, and this is a good basic problem to begin with to get you started. Okay, so hopefully you don't have too much complexity on the exam. From what I hear, it's okay. So you should be all right. Now, 8 is the difficult chapter, and my approach would be to begin with the formulas and look for the similarities and differences between the formulas, like even that flexible budget variance to go from level 2 to level 3. Level 2 still includes the static budget. Level 3 is just looking at the difference between the actual and the flexible. Okay, and you might not have realized that before. So take a look at these variances and then do a simple one twice without looking at the answers. Okay, and start with the simple problems that just start getting those formulas in your head so you know what I mean, so you can see where they belong, the least complex ones. And truthfully, I wouldn't do really hard problems in this. I would do it just so that I was respectable. Okay, and the best problems are the chapter 8 starter problems and solutions here. So 23, 24, 25, 26, and 28. Like this is variable overhead, that's fixed. That's variable, that's fixed. So this is really like 2 problems here. And then 28 is a nice clean problem. And here's an example of the formulas. This is probably the best one. This is right out of your textbook. And notice that they've got 4 columns here, but each variance only uses 3. All right, and that makes it like I don't know, a little bit complicated or a little bit harder to figure out. But let's look at the variable first. We have actual here, and then we're looking at allocated. Okay, there's never a difference between these last 2 columns, so I just leave it off. I don't know why we have to have 2 columns here. I just look at these 3 right here. So it's actual, and then actual input times budgeted rate. Same thing, as for budgeted for variable overhead that we looked at before. And then flexible budget is a budgeted input allowed, and the input is let's see, budgeted input quantity allowed for actual output times budgeted rate. So here's our budgeted rate. Our actual output is, I can't remember. I don't have the facts for this. Our actual hours were 4,500 hours. That's the input quantity. The output has to be units. Yeah, 10,000 units. With 10,000 units, we planned on 40 cents, 40.4 hours per unit at $30 per hour. Okay, so and this is the way we would have well, it's kind of a flexible. It is just a flexible budget. That's how to think about it. What would it be if we adjusted it for the actual quantity? All right. And then in the center, we've got actual input quantity times the budgeted rate, and that breaks it down between spending and efficiency. Okay, this whole thing, these 2 together, are flexible budget variance. Okay, and then for fixed overhead, fixed overhead is actually pretty straightforward. It is your actual costs and then the lump sum. Okay, this is actually your static budget, and this is going to be the same. Okay, but the far right side is what was allocated. Okay, there's one tricky spot in here. Let's see. The actual minus the budgeted lump, all right, is just your spending variance. All right, and then to go from let's see, flexible budget to allocated, that's your production volume variance. Okay, because like if we were going to allocate fixed overhead, we would use the standard. Let's see, it would be our actual units, and everything else again would be budgeted. Okay, I'm not sure this is helpful without looking at a problem, but just remember this chart is in your materials. It's also in your book, and it's a good way to look at it. Okay? Yeah, flexible budget and then production volume. And then here is an example of 822 and 23. So here's our, see how clean that is? There's nothing to it. There's our variable overhead, the actual times budget, and then the flexible budget. Okay, and that gives us spending and efficiency, and the whole thing is flexible budget variance. And then for fixed overhead, okay, they gave us the actual and the budget, so that's our difference. We had to come up with rates here, and that's the part that can get confusing. Okay, because we've got to use a rate here. We've got to use, like it's $15 per hour. So that's our budgeted rate, 15 times 4 hours per unit times actual units. So this is budget, and actual. Okay, I hope this is helpful. I don't know. I'm not feeling it is, but it's one way to look at it. Okay, and then with capital budgeting, we just finished this, so it should be pretty fresh in your head. That you want to remember that the purpose of these analyses is to help managers choose between alternatives. Okay, that's the real point, and the emphasis is on discounted cash flows. Okay, so the emphasis is really on trying to get present value for numbers, because that's the only way they're really comparable, especially if you're dealing with big dollars or if interest rates go up. Okay, it makes a really big difference. And what I would do is start with a basic problem again to get the technique down, and then increase the complexity, just like we did in class. First, we had uneven tax cash flows, then we added salvage values at the end. And remember that depreciation may not have any salvage, but you might plan on one, interestingly. And then finally, tax effects. Okay, and you should be able to access the Chapter 21 quiz, all right? And between Top Hat and the quiz and the problems, you've got plenty of practice in there. Okay, and then finally, the one problem that I liked a lot was custom electronics. And what's nice is that it's with and without tax effects. And just think that when you do these problems, what you're doing is you're trying to get up to the annual cash flow. So let's, in the first one, without tax effects, we've got an outflow of $300,000 in the first year. Then we've got uneven cash flows, and then a salvage value comes in at the last year. You can add these together to come up with one amount to multiply times the factor, okay, to get the net present value. But let's do it now with tax effects. In this case, now we've got depreciation tax savings. Okay, so that changes everything. That affects your annual cash flow. Okay, the depreciation tax savings can be thought of as like an inflow of cash. So you can see these numbers change quite a bit. And the $5,000 that we get in salvage value at the end becomes $3,000 after tax. So capital gains and losses are taxed at ordinary rates. Okay. All right, really big difference here between the net present value with and without tax. Really big difference. Okay, that's about all I've got. That's enough anyway. So good luck studying, and if you need anything, just let me know, okay? All right. Hope everything's going all right.